Hello, everybody. You are listening to the Startup Secret for Entrepreneur, and I'm your host, Shelby Oleschlager. And our mission here is to help entrepreneurs make a difference and navigate the messy world of startup or relaunch. Join me today as we dig deep with our guests to give you the best concepts and strategies to fast track your business. Today, our special guest is Tyler Copenhaver-Heath, who doing the bio background, I'm really fascinated with you. You seem like an incredible human that has quite a resume and quite a drive for life and helping people. So to get started, can you give us a bit of background of what you do?
Yeah. And thanks for having me on today. I guess I get to call myself a serial entrepreneur by now. So I begrudgingly started my first business while I was still in college. I was studying biochemistry, and I had a really clear path at the time on what I wanted to do. I was working full time, going to school full time, and then I was actually building classic cars in my back while doing things. I had 4 hours of free time a week, and that actually turned into, I lived in the city of Scottsdale, and they tend to be kind of picky if you're stripping paint down in your yard. And so that begrudgingly pushed me into my first company, which was called Apex Customs. And what we did was at first, and this is why when you're starting a business and there's a lot of fear in that, that's a big thing of what my message is these days and what I work on is helping people get over that fear, because the fear is mostly imaginary red tape. There is some red tape, and I'm trying to make some of that easier for entrepreneurs, but the imaginary red tape is the scariest. Like, I did not want to do it. I didn't consider myself to be an entrepreneur. I didn't consider myself like that was for another caliber person with a rich aunt that could guide them through the business world, right? So I started my company, and it was a little one-man show, and the idea was to build and flip classic cars, and that evolved, and we quickly latched on to some products that would be changing the custom world. From there, we adapted more things to kind of bolster our services, and this led to other opportunities in different realms. So then, by the time I sold the company, we had a paint and body shop. We had a powder coating system that we were partnering with a couple of the biggest manufacturers in the country for the new automotive world. We had a complete print shop. We had manufacturing. We would build things like mining simulators for companies. We became this small manufacturing facility, custom car shop, and kind of everything under one roof. So once you become an entrepreneur and you finally realize that red tape that I was talking about earlier is imaginary, now your world is open, and it almost dangerously so. And so now you starting more businesses. Anytime you see an opportunity, now you're jumping into business, right? So used the biochem degree, partnered with a friend of mine that was in the UFC and also a nutritionist. And we started Natural Sleep Aid, had good traction in Europe. And that that was the second business. And then a laundry list of other businesses followed. So last year I sold my biggest company, which was Apex. And this led to a lot of reflection and led to me what I'm doing now. And so we're working on our first tech startup. My brother's a PhD in computer science. So we finally get to work together on something. He's done some amazing work on his own. My business partner, as always, Elliot, is also a tech guru. What we're doing is actually making the dream of entrepreneurship, especially for small businesses, more achievable. So that's what we're working on right now. On top of that, I'm doing a lot of consulting, a ton of it for free. And if you're a new entrepreneur, I kind of put this out there. If I can have a conversation with you right now before I start getting my butt kicked with Glaive, I'm glad to do that with you and give you a head start on business.
Wow. Yeah. That's so cool. Just the natural progression for you of doing something that obviously you're passionate about, and then it just kind of trickles down into other avenues. And here you are doing incredible work and definitely trying to help people. And I really like that, just how you do talk a lot about making the connections and just being able to help in that way. So when you were starting, was there any big aha moments that you faced that you wish maybe you knew sooner?
Oh, totally. And it's something that you could only reflect after years of being in business. And for instance, there was such a year of building the last year after I sold my last company. And the things I thought it would be like weren't that way at all. You reflect on this business that you spent 10 years building, and it literally heart, soul. I lived at the shop to start it. I started with $4,000. And so I'm considered a true bootstrapper with quite the bootstrapping story, long past the company growing. I actually even lived in a trailer with no electricity, no water, just so I could keep putting money in the business, be close to it. So I did things to suffer for the growth of business long past when I had to. And so you reflect on that and you're like, why did I do that? And, the answer was I was hungry for growth. I always saw from the beginning my way to impact an industry that was started usually by multimillionaires was I could suffer. And what you have to give is I could suffer and I would put in more hours. So in reflection, I suffered longer than I had to. and so that was one big reflection. And then you start something, and this is what I would message to the would-be entrepreneurs. And I think, and I'm getting a lot of messages lately from current entrepreneurs, 6-year in business, how did you finally make that leap? What was finally the reason to sell, that sort of stuff. And my answer back would be careful the business you start. Because if you have the two traits, and I call these traits, and a little bit redundant, but I call them grit and no quit. If you have grit and you have no quit in you, you will be successful, I promise you. You will find a way to adapt your business that you started and work long past, any bad idea, and I love my first company. I have a love for it. But at the same time, it didn't align with me. Right. So here I am. I'm in a biochemistry program originally. I think I'm going to change the world to some extent, even if it's a little part. And now I'm in a very first world business. And I loved the relationships, had, household name clients, which is cool. What's cooler than like you're putting your childhood hero on a huge trailer for the WWE, Hulk Hogan, and what's cooler than having the Super Bowl bus at your facility because you're doing some work on it? What's cooler than doing work for CNN and Facebook? I could go on and on and on, but at the same time, you have to make sure that this is directly in alignment with your life goals. And at least, and I know this sounds a little hippie-ish, but a lot of people are looking to start a business these days, right? I would say do that, but be careful because if you have the grit and no quit, you will be successful, but maybe you'll stick into something that doesn't align with you. And that's what I found out my last business was. It was an interesting business. It was a fun business. Everybody thought it was cool. It was a lot of work, a lot of hard work. It doesn't evolve into what I feel is a truly good business. So you learn that, like I think the reason it worked so well is because I was willing to suffer over it. But there is easier, better businesses. And for me, I'm someone that has to feel like they're making a difference in the world to feel fulfilled. Once, and I don't want to steal your show too much, but Elon Musk, watch him these days. He goes through this period where he sells his shares in PayPal and he goes out and he buys his supercar, right? And he's running around town and he's dating starlets and, what is he doing these days? Watch these people and, because you have to read between the lines on people. Right now, he's bragging about not having a house, right? And he's working on businesses he feel like are indifferent about the Twitter thing, about Tesla, about batteries, about exploring Mars. These are all stages of transcendence. Like he's wanting to make an impact on the world. He's beyond the money. And I think entrepreneurs should know that because at first, there's two things that people want out of entrepreneurship: your own hours, you won't get them, and tons of money. You will, but it takes time for those things to come. And you'll have to suffer at first if nobody's willing to give you some handouts to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes so much sense. And it just makes me think of really having a concrete why that you're going to do something or pursue your business. If you're not clear on the why and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't align with you, then maybe later down the road, you're going to have that regret, like, oh, well, I have the money and I have this, but I don't feel fulfilled, like you said. So I'm curious for you with what you're doing now, like what has been your why and what's been guiding you towards this path that makes you feel fulfilled with the work you're doing?
Yeah, I have this delusion of grandeur that I'm supposed to do something, and maybe it's just something small. Like I said, I want to be able to help people, and I believe in collateral impacts, and that's such a bad word, but I'm actually keeping it as my own these days. I'm the only one that talks about collateral impact in a positive way that I know of. So for instance, with Glaive, our new startup, I get to do everything I love to do. I have a passion for small business. It's dying, by the way, 3% per year. It has us immersed into the small business system, and there is not enough information going on about what's actually happening with it. And small business is dying, and with the opportunity, the American and Canadian dream, right? So we can call them one and the same. It's the way that a kid like myself, who grew up on welfare, can change his stars. There's not very many other ways in life where you can completely change your trajectory on being a welfare kid to being a success. So I look for things of a collateral nature. If I maintain, and I don't look at the end, I look at the beginning. What is the collateral impact of getting more people that wouldn't be usually entrepreneurs into business? The people that are afraid, that don't have the resources, that think a rich aunt needs to help them. The women, the minorities. I tell you what the collateral impact of these things is. Not only can I laundry list a bunch of effects that small business itself has, but if you get more of these people into business, guess what? Those people have hearts for where they came from. They have hearts for other people. More women in business means more women in business. More poor kids from the ghetto means more poor kids from the ghetto getting into business. And these mentors are helping them. They're going back to their communities. They're spending money in those communities, and they're making change. And so for me, it came about, once again, not to derail, Bill Gates documentary, Bill's Brain. I was fascinated by this documentary. Here's a guy, Bill. Now, he came from means and all these things, and we can have some arguments about that. But at the end of the day, he's a billionaire, right? And his company has billions of dollars. And now guess what? Bill is taking time off. He's not in Microsoft anymore. And what is he doing? Like him or love him or hate him or whatever you want to do, he is out curing polio in Africa. I didn't even know about that until I actually put my boots on the ground in Nigeria. And then I found out again on this documentary. So as entrepreneurs, we can have resources to change the world. And that is so cool to me. I'm getting goosebumps to thinking it, because you have to have success to change the world. But I'm watching this and I'm like, I'm not Bill. I didn't invent Microsoft yet. And so I can't make the same impact that he can. Right. And so I'm like, I don't have $1 billion to cure polio. So the first thing I did was I got a little discouraged, and I'm a little embarrassed to that. And I'm like, I can't beat Bill at this world changing thing. And then I was like, you know what? If you can't beat him, join him. So I emailed him, nothing. And by the way, if you're an entrepreneur, never be afraid to email. We've received emails back from Jeff Bezos. I email a little bit right now with Mark Randolph, the co-founder of Netflix. Never be afraid to reach out and ask questions to people. And so anyways, I email and he doesn't respond. And so I'm like, what do I have? And then I started thinking about this. With my business, we doubled every year and we did some really cool stuff. But the one thing that I did was I held us back. We had been offered 4 reality shows in the time that I ran the company. We had also been offered magazine articles. I did a horrible job of getting my company involved with the free PR. And I look back on that and I ask myself, why was I doing that? And sure, there was trying to be a humbleness. If you asked me about the company, I would say I worked there. I didn't ever embrace it. But that was wrong. And new entrepreneurs, I tell you right now, it's not being unhumble. Sorry, I can't think of the best word. To boast your business, to be the person for your business. You should believe in your business. And I would have went so much further in my last business had I done that. So to get back to what you're asking me, I believe now that I wasn't afraid to give up the 90, 100-hour weeks. That was easy for me. I wasn't afraid to live in the back lot with no air conditioning and 120-degree weather. That was easy for me. The suffering was easy. You know what was hard? Was to give this that I'm giving you right now, to talk, to be out there. We just started a podcast called Bully This because I watched a documentary on bullying, and I looked at it and I'm like, I want to go out there. And I have time right now. I'm like, I'm going to fly out there and ride the bus with these kids, these poor, it just broke my heart. And when I see something, it just touches a different part of me. And I'm like, I got to do something about this. And I could sure go out and ride the bus with the kid a couple different times. And maybe that saves him for that day. But it's the part that I'm afraid to give that I have to give. And that is something like a podcast where we're exploring, the bully scenario and what that can lead to. And then we're also showcasing success stories from bullied to success, because sometimes we just need to hear somebody else say there's hope, right? So everything I do these days has this collateralness involved. And a lot of that is bringing awareness and education to things.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just kind of also ties into what you said at the beginning of, it's ourselves holding us back. And it could start from our earlier days, like you're saying with bullying. If we're getting bullied, then it's going to affect our outlook of ourselves. Then it's going to affect, it's just going to ripple into our whole lives. So yeah, like if you're able to help now, and then eventually, like the goal is obviously to grow entrepreneurs and teach them that they can as well achieve and do all these things. So I think that's absolutely incredible. And I love that when I saw your podcast, I was like, okay, like this guy's amazing. Like just knowing that this is something that needs to be said and putting yourself out there in a maybe more vulnerable position is like you said, something entrepreneurs need to do if they want to be growing and just personal development in itself. So I think that's awesome and good for you. With that being said, I'm curious. So you have all these moving parts and moving pieces and you have everything aligned. So what does your next year look like? Like in your head, what would you like to imagine your following years look like with your business?
Yeah. I mean, I would like to see Glaive as the biggest company in the world. I mean, that's another thing I learned, I started a small-minded business in a way, I often find myself almost, downplaying Apex and what it did, but it was a small business and it was only capable of building so much, sure, you can look into franchising, sure, you could, that's really what changes the game in that business. Sure, we could have devolved into more manufacturing, which is where we were starting to head. But I would put it to entrepreneurs like this: never be afraid, especially with your business. And you said lines with your why. I believe in this. I like to stay away from the hippie stuff as much as possible, but you need a why. Because the why keeps you going in the dark hours, right? If you're just in it for the money and the hours, and then all of a sudden you realize those things aren't there at first, then your why is what keeps you going in the deep dark times. It's like in my business, I experienced a fire burning down a location. I experienced 3 robberies, 2 lawsuits, employee issues, health issues, all within an 8-month period. If you don't have a good reason you're doing something, you'll quit. And that is the thing I'm most proud of. Apex might have had these tremendous clients, and I get to, now talk about business because of it and, these things. But the thing I'm most proud of is no matter how much the business threw me, and I've never heard a story like mine. And if you're out there, please share yours because it does help people. But I never quit. I never even thought quit. Never once did I think quit, no matter how hard things got. And life will throw things at you. And the best advice I ever heard in business is Rocky. And I'm going to paraphrase, but he basically says, life keeps throwing you shots, and nothing's going to hit harder than life. It's just about keep moving forward, no matter how you get hit. And I'm a big MMA fan, so that, sits with me too. You take some big shots, and those that you take in the ring, trust me, are not as big as those you can take in life. And so even when your training partners, Clifford Stark's my co-host on the podcast, and he outweighs me by 30 pounds and has broken pretty much every bone in my body at this point.
So it's saying something coming from you.
Yeah, I like to think so. And, a lot of why I do this sort of stuff these days is I think we need to be aware of the small business dilemma. And I think we have to, if nobody ever shared stories, amazing stories, those are what give us hope. I've read some incredible stories. I'm actually reading right now, if you guys get the chance. It's called, it's about a guy who spent his time in the Nazi work camps.
I'm actually reading
it. Man's the meeting.
Yeah, I literally started that a week ago. I'm like a third of the way through.
Me too. That's amazing.
Cool.
We didn't plan this, folks. I swear. No. This is not a lead up to this book or anything.
So funny. That's hilarious. Yeah.
It's interesting. So I'm restoring a 1900s building right now. And I think the whole time, and it I almost feel bad because it pales in comparison to this. But one message from the book that I'm taking is no matter what you're doing, enjoy it, right? And see the worth in it and see the value in the mission of what you're doing and trying to do. And I've always believed this, whatever you're doing, try to do the best you can at. And it's really hitting me home in the message, because some of the things I'm doing right now in this building aren't a whole lot of fun. You cannot possibly compare them with Nazi internment camp. I don't want to say that at all. But when I'm sitting there and I've got, stuff in my face and my shoulders hurting and, like I'm dirty and I'm soaked from head to toe, I'm loving every moment of it. I'm on a mission to restore this building, and if you can start to look at everything in life, and I don't dare dive into the parts that I don't understand, like a Nazi internment camp, but I can tell you anything that you do in life, you can make it miserable or you can make it fun. And I'm having fun no matter how dirty and sweaty I am.
Yeah. I love that. It's so true. And everyone, I find they stop themselves because they think, oh, like, this is not flattering. This is the unpleasant part. And it's like, just like that mental switch where you could look back at it and be like, yeah, I got really dirty. I had to do all this, but I came out on the other side. And now you're going to have a restored house or whatever it is, right? That you can be proud of and know that you put that work in. And I also think that kind of even goes back with not having that rich aunt that gives you all the tools to succeed in entrepreneurship. But if you're able to do it on your own, then that satisfaction in itself, I think, is also enough to be just like that much more proud that it was you and it was your mission and you achieved it and saw it through. So yeah, that's incredible.
Do you happen to remember the author's name off the top of your head? I believe in name dropping people that do amazing things. Anyways, well, and I'm sorry, check out the book, anyways, that I don't remember his name. But one thing I really got out of him is like having this mission, and you should be on a mission. And that aligns with the business stuff I've been saying. He says what gave people the most hope in those camps was having a mission. For him, it was getting back to writing his book. It felt like a mission. So have a mission, And Will Smith, I just read his book not too long ago. I'm not usually a celebrity reader, but that's another great book. And one thing and I have actually kind of this mindset too. It's like align things in your life towards a big mission. The hardest part is defining it, right? Mm-hmm. Once you define it, then it becomes easy because then you can make every choice in your life. And I actually wrote something up with a nerdy model. I'm kind of a nerd this way, but I did a probability tree and how each decision that you make can align towards or away from your mission, right? So one of the biggest, and I don't want to sound like a teetotal or no fun, but the biggest thing I think you can give up in life that will direct you toward almost every mission in a positive way is alcohol. Going out at night and partying, how does that align towards almost any mission in life? And I'm not trying to tell you don't have fun and don't do it. What I am telling you is most of accomplishing a lofty mission beyond your stratosphere, beyond your stars, is given what you're willing to give up, and I think that's one of those things that you could give up, and then because it takes away time, resources, that sort of thing, to align with where you want your goals to go.
Also the idea of knowing that you can do it. Like this is such an interesting conversation because about a week ago, it's like, you control so many things, right, in your life. And I was like, I can control myself not drinking. Like I noticed it'd be like, oh, I want a glass of wine after work. And I was almost like middle of the day thinking of that. And I was like, that's a problem. I don't want to be like that where it's almost controlling me and controlling my decisions, like you just said. So actually a week ago, I made the intentional decision to say, I am not going to drink for I don't know how long, but that's like my goal is just, there's no time limit, but it's like, I'm just going to stop drinking and control that decision. And I think that's so cool how you worded that where, every decision you make, you need to be intentional about those decisions, and fully agree with you there.
I mean, and it's just one choice you can make, right? So if we have a lofty, Will talks in his book about this too. He has a different way he phrases it, but he's like, his manager asked him, what is your lofty goal? Like, you have to have a goal, Will, and he's like, I want to be the biggest movie star in the world. He's like, that's a goal. And now Will took everything in his life and he started aligning it to this. He called it Fight Camp because he was training to be in the Muhammad Ali movie. So now he has no time for anything else, no time for parties, no time for, he is whole focused, But I'll say this as a person who forgot to live a life for 10 years too, I have no family. I have no pets. I have no, I make time to live life too. Be ultra focused on your why, but also, and maybe I bash on drinking because I just think it doesn't do a whole lot of good, even though if you drink, it doesn't mean you're going to line against your goals. I was lucky that I was in Thailand training Muay Thai and I almost died over there. And so I was kind of like, I had to be really healthy afterwards. And so then I just kind of, stopped. I wasn't drinking that much anyways, but it became a huge advantage because I opened my business a couple months later and I wasn't out on a Friday night. I was working, and I had to study for the first semester that I was opening my business. I did both at the same time. So, and don't quit anything. That's a message that's out there right now that I really want to dispel. If I get a couple things out there today, is collateral impact of things. Absolutely. Caring about other people and having what we can define as a why. And lastly, be careful about what you listen to, right? Vet everything. Read between the lines. Watch people, what their actual actions are. Because one thing that frustrates me these days is the message that school dropout equals business success. And I'm not one to talk bad about people. And you do not, I'll repeat that, you do not need an education to be successful in business. Now I can tell you this, I had my success in business and then I went and got an MBA, and so I believe that people that are after learning constantly are entrepreneurs. And whether you have it in a structured program or whether you do it on your own, just don't listen to the Zuckerbergs in the world, I name dropped, that tell you drop out of school, because here's the thing, if you're a poor kid like me, maybe business hadn't worked for me and I need other options. Zuckerberg was offered McDonald's if his business didn't work or if he didn't want to, or if parents would have sent him back to Harvard. So let me ask you this, what part of quitting is good for a business person and what part of wasting resources? I can tell you, if you pay for your own school, you will not drop out because you don't want to waste resources. And, as painful as it is, you could do both at once if you really want to. There's a lot of hours in this, and I can't tell you the amount of time I was told I couldn't have a full-time job and study biochemistry, and I did it. So be careful what you listen to. And you don't have to listen to me. I just want to get the other side of things out there too. School is what you put into it at the same time. I can't show up to my MMA gym and say, make me the best in the world. I'm here. I paid you this month, for my membership. Make me the best fighter there is. You have to put in the effort too, right? You have to go into school and you have to learn and you have to actively seek relationship and you have to actually actively seek the educational components that you find of value. So, sorry, those are the three themes I'm trying to hit. These days in life, because I feel like there's not enough of those messages out there.
Yeah. Never be sorry for sharing that, by the way. That's great. It to me, it just goes back to like taking the responsibility for yourself and your own actions and knowing that if you're showing up, putting in the work, and like you said, you have the grit, you're showing up, you're working, and you're not going to quit no matter what obstacles come, then success is inevitable. And I think, like you said, that's super important and definitely a key takeaway from our conversation. So for people listening that really resonate with your messages and want to learn more, where can they find you and work with you?
So my middle name is Uriah. So Tyler's my first name, Uriah. And as I mentioned prior in the program, I was really struggling with this, being out there at all. Social media scares me to death. Talking like this scares me to death. I'll overanalyze this conversation 50 times and like regret saying something or not adding something. No. Whatever. And so TylerUriah.com is where I started to explore writing. And this is one of the things in life that I really actively work on because I'm not a good writer. But I write a lot of stuff for entrepreneurs. And I write a lot of stuff about travel and thinking differently and who our heroes are and the way we should look at who our heroes are. Actually, that's a separate podcast we're going to be starting early next year, where we're going to travel around, hopefully the world, and we're going to interview what I feel are true heroes of the world. And these are people that aren't often mentioned, but doing amazing work. and what's the collateral impact of the amazing work? I became pen pals with the guy from Barangu, who's the gorilla caretaker. He is one of those most inspiring men I've ever met. When I first watched that documentary, I get goosebumps. There's a part in it where he goes, you got to be about something in life. And I'm about the gorilla. And just like we talked about goals and aligning those, it's just like, it's unbelievable. And it's easy to be a good person here sitting in the US, like with funds, with my mouth fed, with, a roof over my head, and, talk about making a difference in the world. But now you're in a poor country, and maybe it's not as easy to do those things. And so that's what I believe is truly good people. And then we've been exploring some other people too. So TylerUriah.com is where you'll see those things. And then my writing that I begrudgingly work on. Please don't feel bad about giving me feedback on it too, or asking questions, because that allows me to write something that maybe helps somebody else. I literally do it just to help entrepreneurs for the collateral impact of it. I also, if you reach out to me, and I currently, as of this podcast, I do make time about once, twice, 3 times a week to meet with would-be entrepreneurs. And we go through anything you want to go through. A lot of times we talk about mission alignment from the start. I can help you with the nuts and bolts of business. I can help you with discussing around the type of business you should open and some of the regrets that I have around my businesses. So feel free to reach out, TylerUriah.com. That's also my Instagram. We have Bully This, which its 5th episode just launched. So this is Bully This, a hero's journey.com. And it's about bullied to success stories with my co-host Clifford Starks, who was a bullied kid. I realized through the show that I was actually a bullied kid too. I just never defined it as that because it happened from principals and teachers. And it was actually a key to my struggle with writing, which is what I'm working on now, because I was told that I was not smart and, these sort of things. And so it really led me to dreading these things. And so even you think doing something like Bully This, I'm going to change a little part of the world, with this. You don't realize you're changing yourself at the same time, And so it's been really healing for me. Please check it out if you're interested. Glaive.com will be live towards the end of the year. I kind of slid off your last question. What does the year's success look like for me? It's helping as many people as possible, as many entrepreneurs as possible, as many bullied victims as possible. It's finishing my 1900s building that I am restoring right now. It is building a business second to none in the world for small businesses. I want it to truly have impact and value for the small business community that needs help so much. I want to see the company become big enough where we're lobbying in DC. One of the biggest life-changing things for me was in my MBA class. We went to DC and we saw firsthand, one of the deans was government policy guy. He showed us how government impacts on business. And I don't think there's anybody talking for the small business guy. And so I would love to see our company grow to the point where we're being that guy. I want to lower the red tape, real and imaginary, for would-be entrepreneurs, because business is hard enough. The start needs to be easier. And I'm tired of seeing small businesses too preyed on. There is no system more preyed on than small business. And that's through insurance companies. That's through these dirty loan guys. That's through banks. They should be out there helping you, because even places like Facebook, Google, Yelp, 100% of its profits come from small business. When's the last time they helped small business? Facebook, 75%, I believe, at this point. When's the last time they helped small business? Google, I think it's about 55% right now. What have they done for small business? Somebody needs to help make them accountable. I feel as a group, we can probably do that. So shortest answer, in the next 5 years, I hope to change the world.
Ooh. That's awesome. Well, I just want to say thank you from myself and probably everyone listening for sharing your messages today. I know it's affected me and made me start thinking about other things, and definitely going to check out your writing because I also really enjoy writing. So I'm curious to see your views, and hopefully, other people that are listening will feel inspired as well. So thank you so much for doing this.
No, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for giving me a platform to start to discuss some of these things. And please never be afraid to reach out to anybody. Like I said, we've gotten in touch with Bezos and some other big guys in the past, and I'm a much smaller fry, and I'm willing to respond to you. I believe that we pay people with 2 things: our monetary resources and our attention. And I do value your attention when you write me something. So I always respond. If you didn't get it, check your junk mail, because I can promise you it's in there.
Wow. Awesome. So great. Okay. Well, thank you yet again. And yeah, people that are listening, definitely don't be afraid. Like you said, small fry. And I think even still, like, dream big, message people. It doesn't hurt to ask and put yourself out there. And within time, it gets easier. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks so much again.